Hello and welcome to Nookrium Inc. I am Nook, and today I'm going to draw a map. More specifically, a map of North America, but with a different style to it. Really, like a fantasy style map here, something like what you'd see with Middle Earth or Narnia, that kind of a style. And we'll start off by just sort of penciling it in, and I realize this doesn't really show up very well in the video, so we'll skip ahead to the ink parts here in just a second. But yeah, think of this like a North America kind of map. Drawing it out at the moment, just sort of sketching out the basic outline here, and then we'll go with the pen and get it all started. Eventually, I'm putting up a label up at the top there, which will ease some of the island problems up there. But all right, to the pen part. So these pens I just grabbed them from Hobby Lobby. They're sort of just a basic felt tip pen, nothing fancy. I think it's called pen. I don't know what it's called actually. Pentalic is the name of the brand. This is a 0.3, I believe I'm using on this one. I'll come in later and I'll thicken it and make it look a little better. But right now we're just etching the outlines and drawing the basic parts of the map, all the islands and everything. Normally, I'm normally kind of an anti-pencil kind of a drawer because if someone asks you, or if you decide to draw a map, fantasy or otherwise, the reason you're drawing it is because you kind of want those little imperfections, those little mess ups that you can fix, and not fix, but adds a little bit of I think the kids call it character, and that's why you would draw a map, at least in my opinion. And so you don't need to be like precise. If you're going for like perfect, then you go online and you can draw a map easily that way, or just go find a map out there. But if you're gonna draw a map, then a little mess up or a little goof here and there is kind of the point, in my opinion. So, still working on those outlines. I'm fast forwarding it here a bit because I wanted to squeeze this into a reasonable length video, and we'll get all these done. Then we have to work on the coastlines. We'll get the all of the Canadian islands there. The reason I put that title in up there is because it kind of eased a bit of the island drawing on me up there. You can kind of see it. I realized I need a new camera, I believe. The one I have isn't as good as I thought it was, so might be about time to buy myself a new camera one of these days. Anyway, lots of little lakes in here. I didn't get all of them, but I got a few of them in there. All right, next we go into the rivers. So this is the first time I'm going into the map without using a pencil, and just this is when you got to be brave and you just go in there with the pen and start drawing some rivers. Most of it's not a big deal, but some of them make out state outlines, so those are a little more slow on those. I sped it up just a bit here as well, but you can see like the Texas, the Rio Grande down there. Etching that one in or drawing that one in is make sure that's right, because you can tell when that one's not drawn correctly. But for the most part, you just kind of let them run their course. And that's my little river joke I've got. Okay, river's done. Well, for the most part, most of the main rivers. All right, so this is the coastline part. So you're going to hear me say this a lot within this video, but there's a lot of different ways of doing this. And my river, or my lake, ocean, coastline of choice is this sort of double line technique. Basically, I take my finest pen, which is a 0.05, which is very fine. Just the reason I bought this pen set is because it has a very fine pen. Typically, when I draw these maps, I just use like a ballpoint pen and maybe like a felt tip Sharpie. It doesn't really matter. But these have this nice fine tip, and this is a very big map crammed into kind of a small sheet of paper. And so I need this fine tip. But you can see we take the coastline, and then you go over. Basically, you just follow the coastline close, and then you go in a second line, a little more. You can go a little wavy, a little more incrementally dotted, not dotted, but dashed, to give it that coastline look. And you can see it looks quite a bit nicer. But now we're going into hills, into the Appalachians. So with hills, it's fine doing just sort of the basic hill look, and you'll see when we get to the shading part, it really makes a big impact once you get to that point. I think we're about ready for mountains here, and that's where we're going now. You can see I'm hesitant in deciding where I want my mountains to go, but we're going big. Starting here in Colorado and working our way up. And there's nothing wrong with, as I said before, there's a lot of different ways of doing this. And this is the one I like most. There's ways of like you can draw on like a ridge line and you make the mountains out, but it's almost too pretty for a fantasy style map that we're going for here. There's my attempt at making Half Dome for Yosemite. I really wanted to make this the thing about a fantasy map that makes it so interesting is all the little icons and the little the landmarks that you can see within the map. And so my attempt here is to make that here. And so we're putting all the mountains in, and they're mostly just the upside down V thing with a little bit of a squiggle occasionally, just to give it a little more mountainy look. And again, once you come in here and you can start adding in the shading, even if you do just the basic upside down V and you put the shading in there, it really makes a pretty nice looking mountain, even as it is. If you look at like a Tolkien map, they're basically just upside down V's with some shading, and they look pretty good. So that's all we're really doing here. Adding some hills in there kind of to kind of blend it in. We get the Canadian Rockies up there. Working our way down, we'll head into Mexico here and get some hills and a few mountains within there as well. And get the massive mountain range done there. Get the Sierra Nevada over there. This, when I first was thinking of doing this map, I had all these ideas of all the different things I could add in, like all the different mountain range and hills and canyons, like I'm working on right now. This is the Grand Canyon I'm trying to very carefully etch in here. I just sort of took the Colorado River there, and I just made a bit of a canyon to it, and I'll etch in some lines to try to give it that look of a canyon. It kind of does, but it's kind of tiny, so it wasn't the Grand Canyon that I was envisioning at first, but I think it comes out pretty good. And that's kind of the whole way this map will work. Is it's a very small map, so it's a lot of little landmarks that'll sort of pop in there from time to time. That's my first one, is the Grand Canyon in there. I just wanted to etch in while I had the river there, and before I got anything else taking up that space. You could also go in there and make sure you save yourself some spots, like on the coastlines. If I wanted to put in San Francisco, for instance, clearly there's a lot of things in the way for San Francisco right now. But if I had planned it, I could have maybe taken my pencil and etched a spot away, so I knew not to draw in a spot there. But we're going to Yellowstone right now, and Old Faithful is going to go in there. So there's my geyser etched in Wyoming right there. Just a couple of little things just across the map, just to give it something interesting. And now into deserts. So there's a bunch of different ways, as I said before, of doing deserts. And I haven't really found the best way of doing this. The best way I've found, anyway, is a sort of dotted and dashed line style, what I'm doing here, and the occasional cactus. And you'll see as I move it on down into Mexico, I think it does the job. It clearly looks like a desert, and I mean, we all know there's a desert there, so that helps as well. But the occasional cactus sort of thrown in there. You don't do a whole bunch because then it looks like a forest, but the occasional cactus just to kind of give it a deserty feel certainly helps that out. And now we're going to go into Louisiana and add our swamps into there. And swamps is kind of the same idea, but you add these little tufts of grass, little V's and a little a 3 with V with 3 tongs, I guess. Make a little grassy, swampy looking things with some lines, some squiggly little lines in there to give it kind of the effect of a swamp. There's really not much else I can put in there. That's really the only swamp I have to add as well. So we got that little one there, maybe a little bigger than it should be, but it's a fantasy map, right? It's okay. All right, time for forests. So, as I've said before, many different ways of doing this. There's the individual tree technique. There's the fluffy cloud technique. This is more of like I think this looks a little more foresty because it's a little more of a squiggly line. It kind of gives you the idea of tree fluffiness. And then I'll go in and I'll add a little bit more to it to make it feel a bit more foresty. But we're heading into the south, filling with lots of trees. It's a very green place if you've ever been, especially east of the Appalachians. And all these little humps just sort of added in. Not a lot of them, just a few added within the trees to give it that foresty, that tree kind of look to it. And you can see, especially once we start getting the trunks in there, it really pops. A lot of this map, when we get to that finishing touch, that sort of stage 3, I suppose, of the map, we start adding in the shading and all the different minor details. It really brings out the map, and you can see whenever just those tree trunks go in, it makes a big effect. Almost looks like it's sticking up out of the map, I like it, and that's why I like that technique a little better. Do a few more forests here. There's a lot of trees up in New Brunswick, Maine, up in that area, so we're adding all those in there. And then, of course, most of Canada is just one giant tree, really. So we're going to do a lot more trees in here. I'll skip a bunch of this. This whole map took me about about 2 hours or so. I think it's a little under 2 hours for the thing, and I'm trying to, skip most of the slow bits. I'm debating whether I want to do just put the whole map on the channel as well. So if you want to watch just a whole 2 hour real time drawing of this, let me know, and I may stick it in the channel as well. If you're, I don't know if it'd be like an ASMR thing or what, or just like a relaxing kind of drawing thing. I may add that in as well. If you want to see that, let me know, and I will upload that as well. But more trees. And same thing as we did before, add all the trunks in, just lots of little dashed lines. They don't have to be perfect, because if they're all a perfect length, then it would look like a fence. Just randomly dashed lines adds that foresty look to it. We'll add some shading in later, which will help as well. And we get, I think that's all the forest. I think they do more forest, actually. I don't remember. Yeah, I think I do have more forests. I don't remember what we're doing next. It's a mystery. Oh, more hills, more hills. And again, this is you can see those mountains over there, Canadian Rockies over there. It was just a mountain range. These hills kind of help blend the mountain range in with the rest of the map. There's a lot of mountains on this map, but they aren't so abrupt whenever you add these little hills in here to kind of give it more of a gentle a transition to the mountains. You know what time it is? Time for more forests. So going back into Canada with forest time. I've got that border etched in there with my pencil, so I know where to where to stop the tree. So it looks like there's just a label on top of the map. It covers up all those little islands up there that I wasn't really looking forward to drawing. So I thought a label will do well. And now more little bumps just to help make it look like a forest. And as it is without the little bumps, it looks like just like there's some sort of scary blob living in Canada. But now it looks like, oh, it's a forest. I'm still working on making it look like a conifer forest versus like what's the other tree? The ones that the trees that lose their leaves, those kind. And I'm trying to make it a little more spiky. I'm not sure I got the effect I was looking for there, but maybe. Again, I apologize for my camera. I thought I had a good camera. Apparently, I don't, or maybe I need to mess with some settings probably, which will help with this. So there we go. More trunks coming in, and we'll mix anywhere you can see is as if you are looking from where you're looking at the map. You're standing down in Mexico. When you're looking at the map, you got you can see the bottom of most things. So we'll add those tree trunks in there. Anywhere on the bottom of the forest. And then next, we're going to add a few more details. Oh, grasslands. Okay, so grasslands. The way I do these, best way I found, is just like 3 to 5 little tick marks. And you can even add like a bit of a hill motion to it if you want to make it look a little more like a hilly grassland. But this is the best way I have found of doing a grassland. Anyone that's ever been to Indiana, this is what we're doing here, knows that there is a lot of corn there. And so I thought we needed a few corn stalks there in Indiana just to give it something. There was a little bit of a hole there. We need to add something in there. More grassland. For the whole Great Plains here, we're going to just fill with grassland. And now I'm debating what's next, I guess. Oh yeah, that lake. That lake's kind of a problem. When I was drawing this, I had a couple different maps pulled up. You can see I've got a map on my mouse pad, my keyboard pad behind the paper there, and I didn't use that one. Maybe I should have. But a couple different styles, and I didn't know where those rivers went, those lakes anywhere. Anyway, we're in Texas now, and Texas, of course, has lots and lots of oil, so we are drawing an oil rig down there, just to make just in case you weren't sure where Texas was. Now you know. And in Mexico City, the first thing that comes to mind when I think Mexico City is Tenochtitlan, which is the Aztec Empire and the pyramids down there, the Aztec pyramid things. So I'm etching that in just down there, just a quick step triangle, basically. A little bit of shading. I haven't drawn out yet, but I haven't really decided where my shading is going to be coming from. Like, is the sun going to be in the west or in the east? I haven't come up with that yet, because I'm doing that right now. No, I'm doing desert still. I guess that's the next step. We'll figure out where the shading is. So you want to make sure your shading is all on the same side, right? You don't want shades on the west side of the mountain and the east side of the mountain. So You have to come to a point at some point to decide which way do you want your shading to be. And for this one, the sun is in the west, so I'll be shading the east side of everything. I'm still adding in a few grassland spots that was just the paper was just too white down there in Central America, and I wanted to add a little bit down there. I could probably put in maybe some palm trees or something just to make it a little more jungly. I didn't. Maybe I should have. And of course, the mountains follow the whole coast down. Hills, really. All the way down there. But it might have been too much to have the whole country filled with hills. Next up, we're going into more desert. Filling it over across the river, across Colorado. Now it's shading time. Okay, and shading, all there really is to it is, again, there's different ways of doing this, but I'm more of a, you can just do a few lines, or even just like a little scribble. This is I think it's my 0.3 pen I'm using right now, and just etching in a little bit of shading on there. It's a little more interesting on the mountains, because mountains, you don't want to do just a straight line. You can, but this way it adds a little more. There's slopes and there's different degrees of altitude within a mountain range, and that helps with that. And every time there's a little a kink in the mountain there, you make sure you draw straight down and add a bit more, so you can see it looks like there's a range of mountains there now. And yeah, shading makes a massive difference once you add your mountains. Once you get to the shading part, it really helps add that effect of looking like a proper fantasy map. And look like proper mountains. I mean, you can leave them blank, I suppose, but just it's a simple thing to add the shading in there, and it really makes a massive difference. It really adds to the map. You can see just from what we've got so far, it makes a big difference. And we'll jump ahead. We'll bounce up into Canada. We'll fast forward this just to help move this thing along a little bit. And again, it's not straight lines. You can see I got some little bumps in there, especially on the mountains. I didn't zoom in very well, but you can see kind of a squiggly line more on the shading. It doesn't have to be straight. Just gives it a more of a detailed look to it. Quickly detailed look. Of course, the hills need shading as well. And then we're going to have to get to the forest as well, which I think we're going to do right now. And forest shading is... we're not doing that yet. We're going to do a lighthouse. So I know that... in Nova Scotia, and just outside of Halifax, there's a pretty famous lighthouse out there. I mean, the whole eastern coast. There's lots of lighthouses. So I figured, we got to have a lighthouse or something out there in the ocean. There's a big spot with nothing there. So this is my attempt at a lighthouse, which is really just a triangle, a square, another triangle, and a little bit of shading. And some little ripples are outside in the water just to give it like it's out in the water. I put some rocks in the bottom of it to make it look like it's, a lighthouse on some rocks. I think it came out okay. I've never drawn a lighthouse before. This is my first attempt at a lighthouse. And it seems to, I think it looks like a lighthouse. It looks like something out in the water. Okay, so now it's shading the forest time. And I'm just drawing little lines, horizontal lines. Just the way where I'm having my shading. And then on that right side, because if you think the sun's going to be on the west, then the right side's going to have a bit more shading. So that's what I'm adding in over there. And you can see what it does for the forest. Just a tiny bit of darkening on that side adds that illusion of it being pop out a bit more and add a bit more of a 3D look to it. Same thing with all my forests. And I decided that Cuba needed some sort of a cabana hut. So there's a little hut down there. It was just too much empty space. Something needed to be down there. I guess I could have drawn like a cigar or something. But I think a little house is fine. And then I think next I'm going to put in like a little palm tree or somewhere in there. I'm just adding a bit more texture in there. Nothing really exciting. It's just little squiggles. Just to give it kind of a grassy look. There's my palm tree going in. Just to add something down there because it's just a big white blob without it. Okay, time to go with the towns. So there's, again, many different ways to draw towns, to identify towns on a fantasy style map. My choice, my town of choice is usually just more of like a rectangle with a little flag on it. I thought, this is a known place. This is North America. I thought we should add a little more character, I guess, to the map. So Toronto, we had the I don't know what it's called, but the Space Needle type thing in Toronto. That's my thing there. There's the Sears Tower, whatever it's called now, in Chicago. It's just basically just a big skyscraper with layers. So you can notify a couple towns. If I had the space, I would add labels in here. I didn't do any labels. I need to work on my ability to do lettering, which I'm not very good at. I'm not very good at keeping it straight. Just need to keep my straight edge handy, I guess. We're going to go to L.A. or San Diego, whatever you want to think it is. Probably more L.A. style. Just a big building. Just a couple buildings. You can see I got like a skyscraper. Put a flag on it to make it look medieval. And we'll put a second building in there, so it's like it's a big town, right? It's a couple buildings. Looks like a big town. Leave a little spot open there so you have what looks like a door. A doorway or something. I'll give it a base, a line on the bottom of it to give it a, help it, keep it straightish. I felt like, you know what, this is a fantasy map. We need something a little bit more fantasy. So up here, Edmonton area, Calgary, we're going to add a big tree. This could be, I guess, if you're doing a fantasy map, like an elven tree, just some giant tree out there, which is a location. You know, if you're looking at a map, there's no labels on it, and you see just a giant tree out there, you know something interesting's happened over there. I'm sure there's interesting things happening in Edmonton right now. Look, there's a tree. And I left a little opening on it, so it looks like there's a bit of a door at the bottom of it. And it may be a big old tree, but it's just something out there. And then, of course, there's a lot of totem poles. The totem pole making Indians were in the Pacific Northwest, which is where I add that in there in the Vancouver area. This is my symbol for Vancouver, but just adding a bit more details over there. Which, again, is just like a big cylinder with wings, basically, and a little bit of shading. And when you shade, make sure you always shade the same side. I mean, I guess, you know, as I mentioned before, this is a fantasy map. So if you make a mistake and you shade the wrong side, then you can add in, I don't know, maybe some sort of wizard tower that's giving off a bunch of light, which is affecting that. Just adds more things to your map. Here I'm adding in. I ran out of room on my East Coast. I put the Appalachians a little too close, and I needed to get something in there for DC. So Washington DC is just going to be a cave. I figure, you know, goblins live in caves. I'm sure they're, you know, that's probably appropriate. So there's just a cave there for DC. And New York City, I'm going to add in, I think it's just a tower in here. This is kind of my basic, I didn't have a lot of room there. It's just a basic fantasy town indication. Not a square, but it's a little tower with a flag on it. Because of New York, Chicago, LA, those needed to be marked, I figured. So those are marked there. But yeah, I'm pretty anti using pencil on any sort of map like this. I use it for the outside because this is a pretty well-known map, right? So I wanted to make sure that my coastline at least was recognizable. So I did pencil that in. I also penciled in where I wanted my label. And if I was going to do like labels for towns, I would probably leave a little bit of a space, maybe do a pencil to mark that out. But any sort of like drawing mountains or hills or any sort of geography into the map, you got to go with pen. If you make a mistake, then that just gives you the opportunity to add more interesting things in there. You got a mountain that like has some strange ink blob on it. Well, then just sort of add something to it. Maybe it's some, I don't know, giant beholder that lives out in the mountains. Now we're drawing an igloo in the up in northern Canada because there was a hole there and it needs something cold like. So there's my igloo. Okay, and down here in the Atlantic we needed a shipwreck. So and all I'm going to do here is it's basically just a line, and then we're going to have the bow sort of sticking out of the ocean. It's a very simple drawing, but you don't think too detailed because then it stands out. And the mast on it. We'll have a shipwreck. You know, Bermuda Triangle and all that. Bit more shading. Nothing too crazy. Okay, now it's on to, this is my 0.5 marker. This is the biggest one I've got. I guess I do have a Sharpie that would work. Okay, but this is my 0.5. This is my label. I'm trying to make these things straight. I could use a ruler if I wanted to, but yeah, whatever. I've already etched it out with a pencil. And I'm going to put my North America label here. Actually, I did actually mess up on this. And I was going to put in just like a thick outside border and then a thin inside border, make it look kind of like a picture frame style. And we'll see here. I goofed up, and so I just filled it in. I think it actually looks better than what I was imagining it would be. So that worked out okay. The lettering, I did pencil in the lettering because my lettering, something I need to work on. I cannot draw good letters to save my life. So I drew those in. I did just sort of, I think there's tools out there where you can use that just have like letters you can just trace on the map. But again, you're drawing the map. The whole point of drawing a map is for it to not be perfect. If you wanted a perfect map, you wouldn't draw it. You'd go to any number of sites online or Photoshop, and you could do the perfect map. But we were doing just some basic lettering here. You could pretty easily, I didn't do it here, add in just little, I don't know what they're called, but little flare bits on the letters, which helps out quite a bit. I was quite happy with letters, though, this way. This seemed to be, it's simple, but it fits. And here's where I got my finest pen, and my plan was to just sort of add in this sort of picture frame look. And then after I drew these in, I realized that's not going to work because that in is a little too close to the border. And I tried drawing that, and I didn't do a very good job of keeping it straight. I started to. This didn't work out, so then I just sort of filled it in with my my pen brush, which I always want to use. I never get a chance to use it, though. I've seen other folks use the pen brush for like rivers and things, but I've never really had an excuse to use it, but I found an excuse today. Etching that in. And then, there we come across, I'm like, wait a minute, this isn't going to work. So I tried to make it fit, and then there it is. Whoops. So that doesn't work, but it's okay. So we can go in and I use my my pen brush. Well, I'll use it in a minute. So I'll just fill it in, and then that'll fix it. And what it does is it sort of makes it stand out. So you've got your label that really stands out on the map, and it works okay. So no problem. Mistake averted. I think it looks actually a lot better with that black background. It kind of blends in a bit too much without it. So I think this is where I get my brush pen. It's a very cool pen. It's basically just a brush. Well, it's a brush pen. And you can use it to draw whatever. I think I mentioned you can use it for, I've used it for like my coastlines. You can use it for rivers if you want your rivers to, the size of your rivers to kind of fluctuate. They work that way pretty well. I think most pen packs, I got this pack of pens at Hobby Lobby. Just because it was the cheapest one. I figured I needed felt tip pens. I really just wanted the super thin ones. And for like a map like this, the super thin pens are it's important because it's so much detail in the one small space. You need those fine pins, especially for drawing in like the little cities and the deserts and all those fine points and coastlines for sure. But they almost all come with these brush pens. The pack I got it for like $9. Works okay. Okay, this is the part of the map that makes things really stand out. So I've got my 0.5 marker, which is the biggest that I have. And all I'm doing is I'm darkening the southern edge of the continent. I discovered this watching WSD20, who does maps as well. And it makes a huge impact. All I'm doing is just darkening that southern and that a little bit southeastern edge of my map. And you can see there, I've already gotten half the map done, but you can just see how much it stands out. Look at Cuba and the southern coast of the U.S. It's really helps immensely. And just that southern and a little bit eastern border is all you want to do. I mean, it's tempting to go in and do the whole thing because it looks so good, but if you end up doing all of it, it doesn't work. You gotta just that southern bit makes all the difference. And all these little islands up here will start standing out. Right now, it also helps kind of define your coastlines as well, because you can tell up there it's kind of hairy, right? You've got all these little islands and all these ocean coastline markings. It's difficult to tell which is coast and which is land, which is water. But by adding these details, the southern coast details, it makes a huge difference. There's off the St. Lawrence there, and etch that one in there. And you can see how, and on like the east coast of the U.S. and Canada, you can see how it stands out. And even do it on lakes. This will help establish the land is raised above the water, and it helps give it it pops out a bit, and you can for sure see it up there. We'll move there into Baffin Bay. Is that what it's called? Baffin Bay. Up that way. And all along while I was drawing, I was debating what I was going to do up there in those islands, because it was kind of, all the islands and the coast. It was hard to tell what was going on. It needed something, but by the time I added this in, it did the trick. There was no need for anything else. And we're almost done. Just a few more touches here. We'll have a map. Of course, you could always take these maps and add them into like Photoshop. You can make them look really great if you add them in Photoshop and add all these filters and everything you can do to it. But pretty much all we have to do. I added just a few little lines, little waves for the water. Basically, just little lines. And I thought I'd try my hand at a compass rose. This is actually the next day. I did the map the night before, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to go for a compass rose. I've never drawn one before, but I felt like, you know what? I left a hole over there just in case I got the bravery to do it. I thought I needed to just go for it. I did decide to pencil it in first because I wasn't that brave. But I penciled in just a very simple star. Now I'm taking out my 0.5 pen, I believe is what this one is, and drawing that one in. And I will, we'll see what I'm going to do here. Basically just keeping a steady hand, drawing lines. Really all there is to it. You can make there's some really fancy compass roses you can make if you get very crafty with this. But I got to the point, I had so many things that after that night, and then the next day, all these things I thought, I should add in like Lonzo Meadows up there. I could add like a long house. There's all kinds of things I could add in here. But I think it's good how it is. I did actually add a couple more things before the end of this. But I tried to calm myself. Less is more and all that. And we'll just shade in the one side. Make sure you stick to the right side, whenever you shade your compass rose. That's a basic compass. That's what the compass looks like in my car. The symbol for the compass, anyway. So I think it does the job. And then I'll put in you could do, northeast, southwest. I also had debated for a while in putting a border on my map. I didn't do it. But I think it's fine how it is. And there's my in for north. There we go. Last few details. I thought, Las Vegas need to be represented. So I've got the Luxor in here. Just a pyramid with a shiny top. There's the Luxor. And I think I put in, like a mine over here in the Pittsburgh area for mining and all that. And I needed a flag or something for DC, I felt. So I added a flag in there. It looks kind of like a coastline, though. So, yeah, whatever. I don't know. I was happy with that. But there we go. There's my map. The slow zoom out, but you can see everything. I did actually add a river to that lake there. I don't know what the name of that lake is. Those lakes there, which it does empty into with Baffin Bay. And there it is. So my map of North America, fantasy style, is complete. Thanks again for watching. And I'll see you next time.